I remember being back at uni, sitting in a nutrition lecture, and my lecturer stood up there and was like, so 10 grams of protein, you get this increase in muscle synthesis, then 20 grams, you get like another big one. 30 grams, you get a little bit more, but less, and then it pretty much just plateaus off, right?
If you're following like a intermittent fasting model or a single meal model of nutrition, so whether you're doing OMAD or you're doing like a Oreo diet, something along those kind of lines, then you might need to consume a little bit more, a few more grams of protein per meal to make sure you're hitting your protein targets. And that is actually still going to be beneficial to you to do so. So you don't need to worry about that 30 gram limit.
Yeah. Welcome to Performance Proposition with me, Matthew from Vulcan Performance.
And me, Zab from Multiply Performance.
There we go. I was out in my garden the other day because I'm getting into gardening, loving it. Lots of flowers, saying all the right things, middle-age crisis, fully millennial. I got so excited being out in the garden that I wet my plants.
Simple, effective. I
Simple,
like it.
effective.
Kind of useful.
Boom.
So today's episode, we are basically going to discuss everything to do with protein. We're going to talk about the amount of protein you can absorb in a single meal. We're going to talk about the needs of protein for each individual. We're going to talk about different types of protein and different protein sources, and we might even cover a little bit about the anabolic window as well.
Yes, and we're not going to talk about whether or not protein impacts strength.
No, we'll save that for another episode. Me and Matt had a little bit of an argument before the start of this one. A friendly argument.
I love the spat.
Every time we do these sorts of things, Rich gets so jealous.
Sorry, Rich, but you're not married yet.
Brilliant. Fuck's sake. I swore on an episode. This is, I was the first to swear this time as well.
You were.
Nice. Congratulations to you.
Well done. I've been holding back my potty now.
Bring it out of me. So, protein ingestion. Okay, it was one of the things that you see quite a lot on social media. It's one of the things that's been spoken about within the literature for quite a long time. Yeah. The idea that there is a limit to the amount of protein that maybe not can be ingested, but can be utilised within a single sitting.
Yeah.
So a lot of people would have seen things around like you shouldn't eat more than 30 grams of protein in a single sitting. And Matt, do you want to go into some details around that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember being back at uni, sitting in a nutrition lecture, and my lecturer stood up there and was like, so 10 grams of protein, you get this increase in muscle synthesis, then 20 grams, you get like another big one. 30 grams, you get a little bit more, but less, and then it pretty much just plateaus off, right?
Yeah.
And that was the general understanding back in the day. But, I mean, as we discussed literally just before this podcast, there's been a lot of research recently that's come out that suggested a more linear increase across time.
So it's bigger and bigger. It's like up to 100 grams of protein in a single sitting. And the original research didn't necessarily say that you couldn't absorb that much protein. It simply said that protein wasn't going to lead to an increase in protein synthesis. Yeah. But now we're starting to see that maybe it can be. And the impact of that on the way we currently eat it's really useful to understand that if you're following like a intermittent fasting model or a single meal model of nutrition. So whether you're doing OMAD or you're doing like an Oreo diet, something along those kind of lines, then you might need to consume a little bit more, a few more grams of protein per meal to make sure you're hitting your protein targets. And that is actually still going to be beneficial to you to do so. So you don't need to worry about that 30 gram limit.
Yeah. Just for the other people out there who are exactly the same as me and have never heard the term OMAD before, what does OMAD mean?
OMAD means 1 meal a day.
1 meal a day.
We did say that I was going to do that.
We did say that.
Yeah, because I am a plum and can't speak in simple terms.
No, you just got too much knowledge bouncing around in the head.
I think my brain just runs off in about 16 different directions at the same time, and then I'm trying to catch up with all of those thoughts, which is, I don't know if it's intelligence or just ADHD.
I mean, a bit of both. It's a different kind of intelligence, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if
you can't follow all of your thoughts, then it's a bit problematic.
It is, but you're also able to have 6 conversations at once, or have a conversation with your partner across a table where you're having a restaurant and you're just listening to the couple next to you argue. Yeah. That's really fun.
Never happens to either of them.
No, they never get annoyed either. So yeah, basically what we're saying is it used to be common wisdom that your muscle protein synthesis upregulation peaked at around 30 grams of protein per ingestion, and having more than that was almost useless, and you may as well split it up across the day in 30-gram chunks. Whereas now we're starting to see that if you want to eat 1 meal a day, you want to intermittently fast, you want to do that, it's even more essential to get your protein in that one meal, because you can theoretically ingest, I don't know if it's up to 100 or if it's more than 100, but like
it probably is more than 100. I feel like every single time we go down this road with science, we start to see that the number just is ever bigger, ever expanding, and it's like it's probably a trainable quality, and the same with most nutritional things.
Yeah,
like how many carbohydrates you can consume in a single sitting, how many carbohydrates you can consume on a run, how much protein you can consume is probably going to be trainable. You will improve the ability of your body to absorb protein the more protein you consume.
Yeah.
And tolerate that protein once it's absorbed, and utilise that protein as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we're at in 10 minutes' time, when everyone's just consuming 200 grams of protein in a single pill and
just getting super jacked.
That is the future of fuel.
Just a pill.
I don't actually, let's take that out, because I don't want to promote fuel on this podcast, because it's already going to be promoted over this podcast if we ever get enough views. They literally promote on every single video I look at on Instagram or YouTube even.
Yeah, I mean, they've done well.
They've done brilliant.
They've taken a concept that was originally put forward in the Matrix by a slot that contained everything that you could possibly need in one go, and they went, hey, we can do that in a drink.
And sell it for £3.50 per bottle.
I mean,
I convince people it's a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have fuel sat up on top of my my cupboard over there. So,
do you know what? I've never tried it.
It is. I don't want to promote it.
But
it is good. It is really good. Right. Anyway, we were going to go off on to the next topic, which is like actually, if you're following OMAD or you're following some kind of intermittent fasting model, then knowing that you can consume more than 30 grams of protein in a single meal is a useful thing to understand. But most people aren't ever going to need to worry about that, because most people aren't going to need to hit more than 30 grams of protein based on their daily total protein requirements. Mm-hmm. So that kind of takes us down the road to how much protein do you actually need as an individual.
Yeah.
And the basic way of looking at that is based on the demands of your training. So if you are an endurance athlete and you're looking to improve running performance, then realistically you're looking somewhere between 1.2 and 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of your body weight, potentially up to 1.8 grams of protein per kilo body weight if you are a very, very, very good distance runner that's doing a load of miles a week. Like if you're doing 200 miles a week, then you're going to need more protein than if you're only doing 50. If you are a power or strength athlete, then your protein needs actually increase a little bit more. So you're probably looking somewhere between 1.4 and 1.8 grams of protein, maybe 2 grams of protein in extreme cases.
Yeah.
If you are looking at body composition, then typically, even if it's weight loss or hypertrophy, you're looking somewhere between 1.6 and 2 grams of protein per kilo body weight. Maybe a little bit higher if you're taking any special supplements.
Yeah. Special supplements, I like it.
Another thing we don't want to promote on the podcast.
But yeah. So basically, the more muscle damage you're going to be creating, and the more stimulus you're putting through mechanical tension and things like that, the higher the amount of protein you need to eat is. Like you said, if you're training twice a day, 3 days a week, you probably need a lot of protein, because to get that recovery, to keep that ability to keep doing that, it's quite hard. If you're training once a week, you need probably a lot of protein on that first day, and then you can probably taper it off throughout the week, to be honest. Or
I mean, you could have it so that you spread it out over the course of the week. It's probably not going to make that much of a difference to your recovery if you're only training once a week. But your demand is lower, so therefore your needs are lower. Yeah. Like if you look at, we were talking about ourselves before the start of the podcast, both of us weigh 100 kilos, both of us strength train pretty much every day. Yeah. So our needs are around about 1.8 grams of protein per kilo body weight, which works out as about 180 grams of protein per day. Mm-hmm. So if we split that over the course of 3 meals and 3 snacks, it's 30 grams of protein per meal and snack, which could be a protein shake, some kind of protein yogurt, or nuts, seeds, whatever in our snacks, and then it's easy enough to hit 30 grams of protein in your meals if you're relatively diligent with it.
And then if you're putting your body in a super stressful state, i.e. calorie restriction, or like really going hard for the, like you say, the bodybuilding, and if we're on special supplements and we're creating more of that damage, then you need more protein to convince your body to hold on to the muscle mass that you currently have, because you have to keep saying, hey, I've got the resources for this, keep hold of it. But the only problem with that, which segues nicely into the next bit we were going to talk about, is obviously we always talk about protein like it's this great thing, this perfect thing, this wonderful thing that we can consume and we can increase our muscle mass, but a lot of that is skewed from the people talking about it being from a performance perspective and not a health perspective.
Yeah.
Because in reality, consuming protein, trying to be anabolic, trying to grow muscle mass, trying to do all that sorts of stuff is actually quite inflammatory to the body. And, you know, in the way that you're increasing, you know, you're encouraging growth. So what is the biggest encourager of growth in the world? Cancer. You know, and I'm not saying at all
being on a high protein cancer is not instantly going to give you cancer, and it's not instantly going to cause any real issues, but it does increase the chances of certain issues. And it's the whole thing around, like, if you increase protein synthesis, you're increasing the mTOR pathway and all the side products of that pathway, which is going to increase the number of free radicals you produce, which is therefore going to increase the risk of cellular damage, DNA damage, protein damage. It's going to lead to more upregulation of certain pathways, which is then going to lead to certain problems potentially down the line. And that kind of basically is one of the main reasons why this argument even exists online about protein intake and how much protein an individual needs, with people on the performance side of things saying, oh, well, you should be aiming for somewhere between like 1.2 and 2 grams of protein per kilo body weight. And the people on the health side of things saying, actually, you should limit your protein intake, probably aim for 0.8 grams of protein per kilo body weight.
Well, I remember that same lecturer at uni telling, like, basically, I mean, he was very much on the other side, and he was like, we probably don't even need, like, you probably only need 0.6 grams per kilo of body weight. And I was like, okay. And like someone said to me the other day, they were like, oh, yeah, they were trying to get the whole, like, only eat vegetables, you know, no, and they're like, we don't need protein. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure we do need. I think that's a big thing that Tim Spector talks about, is he's like, you don't need protein. And I'm like, yeah, if I'm going to sit on my couch all day, do nothing to stimulate my muscles.
But even if
I probably don't need
the minimum you need for a health basis, right? So even if you're just talking about someone who goes out and gets their 3 10-minute brisk walks in a day, that individual isn't putting a huge amount of stress on their muscles. They're not putting a huge amount of stress on their bodies, so they don't need to increase their protein intake. But if you're trying to train to maximise performance, then you need to train in a way, you need to eat in a way that's going to support protein synthesis, repair, growth, adaptation. And that requires the intake of additional protein. So that is like, that's why there are two sides to this story. And if you are looking at it purely from a health perspective, then potentially limit your protein intake slightly. You might not want to limit it to 0.8 if you are exercising, but you probably don't want to go near 2. If you are looking to maximise performance, you might not worry so much about the health perspective, and you might aim for 2 grams of protein in spite of the fact you don't need it, just to make sure that you're getting more than enough protein.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Performance is very, very separate from health.
Yes.
It's very, very separate from health. A lot of people who have been at the top of performance in sports and, like, sports basically, a lot of them, when they get older, they're not particularly healthy individuals because they've pushed their body beyond the limits that it really likes to be. And that's where, like you say, that line gets blurred often in this industry, because it's such an overlap between health and performance.
I mean, it's one of those things where the very foundation of both is the same. You're trying to increase physical activity, and you're trying to give your body the things it needs from a nutrition standpoint, from a sleep standpoint. But then, as you start moving further and further towards maximising performance, the amount to which you're pushing your body is all about placing stress on your body. Maintaining health is typically about reducing strain and stress on your body. So at that point, they deviate, and then they just move away from each other further and further and further and further until they're basically not in the same. You can't really have a conversation between both sides.
Exactly. Like, you know, you wouldn't be having a conversation between like what Eddie Hall should do and what Tim Spector's telling you to do. like you said, they're so polar opposite. Cool. So we've talked about dose in a single sitting. We've talked about dose across a day, how much you actually need. The
Sources?
next thing, well, I was actually going to go down the road of the next one. My brain is completely frozen.
We had
Those-
anabolic window.
Anabolic window.
Okay,
That's
so
it. Yeah.
time. So when it comes to the anabolic window, it's one of the, again, that's one of the ones that's kind of a little bit contentious within the industry, and we're really quick to flip flop in science. We go, okay, right, this thing exists, and then a new study comes out that says it's not really that relevant, and it's like, okay, well, this thing never existed, and actually, like, the fundamental premise behind what the anabolic window is makes sense. In that, when we train, we create we create byproducts, waste products associated with that training session, and those waste products signal our body to do certain things that will aid in the repair of the cell that's been used. Right. So if you have a reduction in protein within the body, or you utilize protein within an exercise session, then there will be markers of that will tell your body to increase the amount of protein it absorbs into that cell to aid in the repair and the replenishment of that cell, and return it to homeostasis. So post-workout, we're going to see increases in the amount of transporters that move to that cell membrane to absorb protein to help it repair and return to normal. And it's not until that repair has taken place that those markers disappear and those cell transporters or cell membrane transporters move away from the cell membrane, because that increase in protein intake isn't required anymore.
Yeah.
So if you look at that from an anabolic window perspective, if immediately post-exercise you consume enough protein, enough carbohydrate to replenish that cell and return that cell to normal really quickly, then beyond that point, you're going to see quite a quick drop-off in the amount of protein that's being absorbed by that cell. If you don't do that, then your body is going to want to absorb more protein and more glucose into that cell for an extended period of time. And that's what we're seeing now in the research. Is like, oh, actually, the anabolic window doesn't exist. It's indefinite. So long as you consume the amount of protein and the amount of carbohydrate needed, then you will recover fully from that session.
Yeah. But it's like a priming thing, right? It's like right after the session, your body is as ready as it will ever be to receive that stuff. It's like, it's there, so I need it now.
Yeah.
And I think the way to look at it is like your body always has resources inside it that it can use, right? So it will just kind of crack on with the work, as it were. If you feed really quickly, the body's like, oh, I've got stuff coming in, so I can get on with this now. Like, let me bang, it absorbs. If you leave it a little bit longer, it's kind of like it's already getting on with the work, and then the delivery turns up, and just put it over there, and we'll use it. So like the work gets done, but the work gets done faster if you bring the resources instantly. You know, it's like bringing your tools to your builder at the start of the day when he's just had his coffee, he's ready to go, and like, right, here's all your stuff to do your job. If you wait until midday and he's been sitting around like waiting to get started, he's okay, cool, I'll get going now, and it just takes a bit longer, and he's not quite as efficient with his work.
So from the perspective of like whether or not we should make use of that, what we're realistically saying is like, actually, the latest science says you probably don't need to make use of that, particularly if you're going to be spending the next 48 hours resting. But if you are going to be training within 24 hours within the same day, then you probably want to make use of that, because
100%.
actually it's going to lead to faster recovery, it's going to lead to better performance in that subsequent session, and better long-term results as a result of.
Or even in a more basic way, if you have access to protein and carbohydrates immediately post-meal, immediately post-training, get it in, take it, have it, it's going to be great. If you don't stress. Because if you get it in across the day, you'll be all right.
And if you're on a low calorie diet, if you are on a cut, then potentially don't stress too much if you're worried about how much that post-workout meal is going to impact your total calorie intake for the day. That is one thing that we do need to consider when it comes to it. What's your total calorie intake for the day? How do you split those calories over the course of the day? If you want to, you can try and put your training session as close to a meal as possible, so that you then get the best recovery possible from that session. But if that doesn't work for you timing wise, and you want to try and make sure that you're leaving enough calories for later in the day, then
Yeah.
Take your time.
And it's the same with everything. I think the reason that everyone got so obsessed with it is because it's almost like they got tricked into this idea that if you miss your anabolic window, your work was useless and you may as well not have done it. And I think it's very good that we've come round almost full circle on that. We've gone, hey, chill.
Yeah.
Chill. You've put a big stimulus into your body. It's not just going to go, fuck it, I'm not going to repair that muscle because you haven't given me protein in the first
place. The world's balance is restored, by the way. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I completely agree. It's one of those, there's too many attempts to provide simple messaging. And sometimes that simple messaging is great if it gives people a load of simple rules to live by that all make sense.
Yeah.
But the second those rules become conflicting, then it suggests we probably oversimplified the message.
Yeah.
And like if they cause stress as well in particular, if we've oversimplified the message. Like nutrition isn't that complicated. The emotional side around nutrition is the thing that is more challenging to cope with.
100%. So
protein sources.
I mean, there's a huge, the elephant in the room here is like meat eater versus vegan versus vegetarian. Like, how do you go about getting good protein sources in each of those diets? The meat eater one is obviously super self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Like lean meat-based protein is the optimal source because
it's naturally
complete. It has everything that we need. You're essentially consuming the thing that you are about to build. I think ages, like again at uni, like one study that will always stick in my mind is they did a study and put some biomarkers or something to like show up in people's protein. Like they got these steaks. They got the steak and I can't remember what they put in it, but they made it so it would show up when they scanned them.
Yeah.
And they fed them the steak. Yeah. They ate it. 2 hours later they scanned them. And the steak was incorporated into their muscles after, no, I'm not necessarily but essentially it was like you actually are what you just ate.
Yeah.
You're not just what you are, you're not just are what you eat, you are what you just ate.
Yeah.
Which is just absolutely, it's nuts. Anyway, going off topic. So, like,
animal protein is the easiest way to get a complete protein source in. If you're a vegetarian, then the easiest way to get a protein source in is probably going to be a dairy product, right?
Yeah.
And if you're a vegan, then it becomes more challenging to find complete sources. There are complete sources out there, like there are better sources of vegan protein form like kind of tofu and other soy-based products.
Yeah.
But actually, realistically, the best forms of complete protein tend to be combinations of like grains and pulses.
Yeah. So
I think
like
beans and rice.
I think pea and sunflower together form a complete one, I think. But like, basically all your vegan protein powders, the rubbish ones, the ones at the bottom end of the scale, will have like one ingredient. They might have like soy protein.
Yeah.
Because they're just being a bit lazy and it's cheap. If they're slightly higher up, you're always looking for probably like 3 or 4 different sources to get like a really balanced profile in terms of bioavailability and just balance of essentially amino acids. And
should make the point that soy is probably not going to give you boobs.
It's probably not going to give you boobs, no. Although there has been in the past, there's been suggestion that it might upregulate estrogen to an extent. I think it's a bit like the whole MSG thing where it's like, cool, if you inject estrogen directly into rats, it'll probably fuck it. But if you're consuming it in such low quantities, and I think
if you're vegan or vegetarian, like you want to make sure that you're getting your protein intake from different sources throughout the day. You don't just want to be consuming purely soy-based products.
Yeah,
but it's not going to hurt you to have a soy-based product here and there.
No, but I think the other point to make on that is, as a vegan vegetarian, it's probably better for you to search out alternatives to soy because soy is in everything.
Yeah.
So like I say, if you're trying to balance where you're getting it from, like all of the protein bars that you'll buy in the shops, they all have soy protein crispies added to them because it's cheap, it's available, it's easy to grow. So if you're trying to balance your protein source across, a week or whatever like that,
we've done a really bad thing.
What?
We didn't press record on here. We pressed record on those.
Fuck!
It's alright, it's fine because actually those will still have our audio, so it's okay. But from the perspective, it's been such a good podcast as well. I've really enjoyed it.